Morning everyone, a very warm and sunny welcome to the SME Club by Pro Manchester, very proudly sponsored by us at Virgin Money. For those of you who I haven't met before, my name's Ruby, and usually I'm the events coordinator in our Market Street branch in Manchester, but at the moment all of my team are working from home like many of you, so it's still great to be able to connect with you all through these events online. Our main priority in this difficult time is supporting our customers, and all the support that we offer can be found on our website, and we'll circulate those links to you following the event. And we'd love to hear what you have to say about today's event, so do tag us in any of your social posts. That's at Virgin Money on all social platforms. And the event today is rapid physical and mental enhancements using holistic health protocols. And I'll hand over to Andy to get the event started.
Thank you very much, Ruby. That's a wonderful intro. Guys, let me just go on to shared screen. Fingers crossed this works. Okay, are we good? Right, guys, thank you very much for joining and thank you for inviting me on. It is absolutely wonderful to be with you today. I'm going to just go through a very brief intro. It would be lovely at some point, once we are out of lockdown, if I could meet you guys, but for now we'll have to settle with a quick intro from myself. So my journey started in the Royal Marines. I was an active service unit, 4-2 Commando based down south. And I was in active service in Sierra Leone and Northern Ireland with training in Arctic, mountain and jungle warfare. So I came from a very aggressive, conventional training background, and I kind of flipped that on its head because I realized that that really wasn't the future of coaching. And I went into a much more holistically led approach, which has got fantastic results over the 18 years. So I've been I classify myself as a personal trainer by trade. I have various businesses. I'm involved in the world of business, but I still like to tell people I'm a personal trainer because I have a small client base. My last business was 500 personal trainers working for me across the UK. And I've now moved on from that to create 2 businesses based in the Royal Exchange in St Anne's Square, the Remedy Kitchen. You may or may not have heard of it. It's the first gluten, dairy, and wheat-free menu in the city. And then where I'm coming from today is GSquared or GSquared health clubs. And these down here are just a few shots of what the actual facility looks like. So I'm very much a representative of GSquared health clubs today, guys. But I'm far more interested in talking to you about some really solid information that I think and hope can help yourselves. And I don't force things down people's necks. I tend to just share what's worked for myself and for clients and for personal training clients that I've mentored over the last 18 years and let people make their own mind up. So throughout the course of this seminar, guys, some of what I say might bring stuff up for you. If it does, that's absolutely fine. I'm going to go through certain elements of lifestyle and health factors that might resonate with you. I only tend to discuss things that are based on a practical application. What I mean by that is that if I've not tried it or done it, I tend not to have an opinion. So it's only really stuff that I've done with clients and myself that's actually worked and got success. That obviously has some evidence and research behind it, but I tend to move away from the textbook of ideas. Feel free to ask questions. You can ask them anonymously if you wish, or you can use your name. It's fine. I think we'll probably answer all questions at the end if that's okay, just to keep the flow of the seminar. Now, the first thing I like to do is obviously some sort of icebreaker, but this is more of a virtual icebreaker. But there is a bit of a serious element to this. I call it the physiological alignment test. And I'd like you to try this right now. It's a practical thing. It doesn't require you to move. It just requires you to do a couple of things. Or you can do it later after the seminar. So you can either break off and listen to me in the background and try it, or you can just wait till later and make some notes. It's very simple. All you need to do is count your breathing for 1 minute. So just sit quietly. It's a pretty good time of day to do this, actually. And you just literally count your breathing for 60 seconds and just make a record of the number of breaths. And you do the same with your heart rate, which I'm sure you've done many times before. So you just literally check your heart rate for 1 minute. So you can either take it for 10 seconds and multiply by 6, or you can take it for the whole 60 seconds, or if you've got an Apple Watch, use that. And all you do, guys, is you divide the breathing into the heart rate, and you should get a figure. If your body is aligned, you should have a whole figure. So once you divided one by the other, you should have a 5 or a 7 or a 9 or a 12, whatever that figure is. The figure's not important. What's important is a whole number. If you're misaligned in some way, you'll get a 0.5 or a 0.4 or some sort of decimal figure. And it doesn't tell you what's wrong, but it just suggests that it could be a sleep disruption issue. It might be that you've got food intolerances, you've got too much stress going on, your adrenals imbalanced. And this very much comes from the traditional Chinese medicine world. So you can see like the massive kind of flip going from this very conventional training to now much more interesting, holistic and person-centered approach. Second thing to look for, and this is kind of more scientific and physiological as opposed to the physical, is your rate of breathing. Guys, if your breathing is beyond 12 to 14 breaths per minute, it would suggest that you are potentially a little bit acidic. This is often caused by excess sugars. And right now, if your breathing right now, guys, is beyond 14 breaths, I would probably want to review what you just had for breakfast or what you just had to drink, because it's probably coming from there. So if the body is breathing heavily, it does suggest that it's trying to combat an acidity. What can we do about it? Well, a really great thing you can do for yourself is any exercises that move across the central alignment of the body. So anything that involves any sort of twisting. You've probably seen Tai Chi. Tai Chi movements are very much kind of crossing over that central part of the body. These are sort of exercises that you can do to start to realign the body, whilst also looking for the causes as to why we are misaligned in the first place. So that's the first quick thing that you can do, just to kind of check in with yourself and see if you are what we call physiologically aligned or not. Let's move into some of the current day challenges. So the first thing we're going to do is understand what we are going through. Most of us, and well, I'll say most of us, I'm going to say all of us on this call right now, are overly reliant on our adrenal function. And there are 4 stages of adrenal function. I'm going to get to that in a second. 3/4 of us, guys, are what we call insulin resistant, otherwise known as pre-diabetic or pre-diabetes. Don't be scared by that name. It just means that we're not managing sugars particularly well. And that's how the process of type 2 diabetes starts. It starts with us on a level, lesser or greater. The body isn't quite managing the sugars that we're consuming from our carbohydrate-based foods. And I won't go into detail because we've not got time, but there's a specific process in the body that causes us to be insulin resistant. What it does essentially is it sends the carbohydrate-based food down the fat storing pathways as opposed to into the cells themselves for energy. And that's how we can end up gaining weight. It's called lipogenesis. So we're either lipolytic, where we're using fat for energy, or we're lipogenic, where we're actually creating fat cells. And it's a big problem because we are typically over consuming carbohydrates in the modern day. Over the last 3 decades, believe it or not, male testosterone has decreased by 30%. So every decade it's dropped consistently. And the norms, when we do lab testing and guys get their testosterone levels checked, the norms have consistently flexed year on year. Many reasons for it. No one's really come out and suggested the exact reason why this is happening. It's probably linked to toxicity in our diets combined with various nutritional deficiencies. We have, and this is also kind of linked, we have excessively high estrogen levels in the Western world at the moment. And again, these estrogens are coming from what we call xenestrogens, which are essentially toxicity behaving like estrogen. So for example, plastic in the body will behave like an estrogen, and that can suppress testosterone. The other thing that can suppress testosterone in both men and women is the stress. So when we get stressed, the adrenal gland releases cortisol, and that can suppress thyroid function, that can suppress appetite, immune system, and our natural sex hormones. So that's why I want to really get into it and help you understand what is going on. So you can probably, if you can fix one thing, you can solve a whole host of health challenges. We now know, guys, that at least 40% of cancers are lifestyle attributed. So in some respects, that's actually quite positive, that we can take measures in our lifestyle to reduce the chances of cancer in ourselves and our family and friends. Sadly, my dad had stage 4 lung cancer, and we actually managed to reduce the tumour by 76%. He was going through chemo, but we actually did a lot of naturopathic protocols, and it's not one for today, but it was a real result that we had a quality of life with him right to the very end. Most of us guys are overfed and undernourished. We're all professionals on this seminar, and I'm just going to put it out there right now. You cannot operate optimally as a business professional on a Greg's meal deal or a Boots meal deal. It's just not going to happen for you. I know I've named and shamed there a little bit, but guys, you've got to really start to ramp up the quality of the food that you're putting into your system if you're really looking for the best possible outcome mentally and physically. I'll give you a starting point today, and I could literally just go off on a tangent right now, but I'll discipline myself and I'll hold back. The good news is that any health related issue can either be at best repaired or at worst somehow improved. So even my dad, it was terminal cancer, we were still able to do loads of things that enhanced his quality of life right to the very end. So the one biggest challenge that you are facing right now in this modern day world is a thing called hypothalamic pituitary axis dysregulation. That's just a posh word for imbalanced adrenal function, which in other words means stress. So if you take a look at this graph right here, I'll just give you a few moments to familiarize yourself with that. Guys, you will sit on that graph somewhere. So I'll talk you through it. We have here, if you can see the cursor, we have the normal stage. This is called adaptation. It's unrealistic for me to say to you as a coach, you just can't have stress in your life. Stress is damaging. If you get in a stressful job, then you're just going to have to leave your job. That's not realistic. We can't do that. What we have to do is we have to learn to handle the stress that's coming in, or the perceived stress. And what happens is if we don't, we continue on this increase. We've got here cortisol, some in nanomillimoles along this side. As we continue to become reliant on our adrenals, we start to move into stage 2, as it's called, which is acute distress. This is where you're very much stressed and wired. And you'll know you're here because you'll be on top of your game, you'll be responsive, you'll be really quick off the mark to reply to emails and get stuff done. But your immune system won't be great. If there's a cold floating around, you'll get it. You'll probably have some low thyroid function going on. You might start to have a bit of a buildup of fat around your midsection, around your stomach, and you won't be able to get rid of it because there's been loads of links now connecting body fat to certain storing around the body based on our hormonal health. And high stress, high cortisol is linked to stomach fat. There's loads of research to suggest that. Now, you could stay in this zone for years. Weeks, months, years. Really depends on the individual, depends on how robust we are, depends on our genes, depends on our diets. So many factors that determine how long we stay in this zone for. But eventually, guys, if you still keep killing the coffee each day, living off stimulants, not sorting the nutrition out, been exposed to stress, not dealing with it, and sort of burn the candle at both ends, at some point you'll start to exhaust your adrenals. And the adrenal gland will start to pack up and cortisol will start to drop. This is where we move into a place called stressed and tired. So you're waking up in the morning and you're feeling tired, or you're feeling wrecked. You're not coping with stress particularly well. things are getting on top of you. You're probably having what's called brain fog. So you're probably starting to forget things, or your memory's starting to go a little bit, or you're feeling overwhelmed or anxious because you just kind of sat in front of your laptop and thinking, where do I start? These are all kind of like the physical traits of being in this place. And again, there's many people out there, I can spot them fairly easily, who are in this space. Certain physical symptoms start to appear, black rings under the eyes, body fat around the stomach starts to build up, fairly weak immune system, very acidic. So the physiological alignment test, they would be a decimal point straight away. Their breathing would be fast. Their heart rate would probably also be a bit what we call tachycardic, so above normal. Like there's so many factors that you can read in people. Like the body expresses itself very clearly. But if they keep on going, eventually we move into what's called collapse and exhaustion. Many entrepreneurs, many business people have gone through this. This is basically where you just can't get up. Like you really are fatigued and exhausted. And the cortisol, which is the hormone that's required to get us out of bed in the morning and get us moving, is just flatlining. So that you will be on that graph somewhere, guys. And it's really down to you to be intuitive. And to think, you know, really, what are the symptoms for me, and am I really performing optimally? And you know, is this the life for me? The physical cues, as I've already said, the body fat storage is linked to your hormonal health. And when it comes to cortisol, which is the hormone emitted from the adrenals, it's very much stomach fat. You'll end up with a body composition change. So you'll find that you're gaining body fat and maybe losing some of your muscle tone as well, because cortisol in high prolonged doses is corrosive, not just to the body, but to the brain as well. And I've kind of honed in on this one and really kind of hammered it because it's such a massive problem. Like everyone seems to be having this going on for them on a lesser or greater degree. So if we can combat this, it can really, like I said, open up many other pathways of well-being. And yeah, cortisol will also age your body. It will mess around with your insulin production. Your blood insulin profile will start to come screwed up. Your ghrelin and leptin, these are your hunger hormones. So just remember ghrelin as the hormone of hunger and leptin as the hormone of satiety. You'll start to get prolonged release of ghrelin. So you'll have like food cravings. So let's look at some of the extreme causes. Aches and pains in the body, guys. So any form of aches and pains, you'll find that your body will naturally release its painkiller, which of course is cortisol. That's its job. That's what it's there to do. Any form of extreme temperatures, from cold to hot. Hunger, guys. Hunger is like, it's like the worst thing you can do for your body. And I'm just so against anyone that's advocating restricted calories or for any period of time. Or thinking that hunger is a good thing. It really isn't. Like again, I could go into a whole presentation about hunger. We don't have time for it today, but there are so many negative implications when it comes to being hungry and thirsty as well. Obviously, emotional challenge. We have personal issues, we have financial challenges, we have business challenges, we have lockdown, we have how am I going to pay the bills? We have all that. That's called emotional challenges. That releases stress, right? We'll have that. Excess intake of sugar. There's an 80% chance that it's sugar that's making you fat, because there is this symbiotic relationship between cortisol and insulin. And in layman's terms, as you know, consuming sugar spikes insulin. So the pancreas releases insulin to transport the sugar to the cells, as we mentioned earlier. Every time insulin drops, cortisol rises. And typically when we're feeling stressed, one of the quickest ways of ramping down cortisol to get under control is by spiking insulin. So you've got this really interesting relationship between the two hormones. We've got a number of deficiencies in the UK. You've probably heard about vitamin D. That one gets wheeled out by the media pretty much every single year, that we are deficient in vitamin D. But we've also got deficiencies in omega-3, which is an essential oil, magnesium and zinc. And they have all sorts of really, really crucial reactions within the body. Zinc, for example, I ask clients to supplement with the zinc to help with their lower body fat, because with, again, this idea of hormones being linked to body fat distribution, any females that have a disproportionate buildup of fat around their legs or lower part of their body is typically either imbalance of the estrogens themselves or a poor excretion of the excess estrogen. And zinc is particularly powerful and particularly useful for helping to excrete those excess estrogens. In guys, zinc helps to create luteinizing hormone, and luteinizing hormone helps to build testosterone. So it's a very useful mineral for both females and males. Overtraining, but again, that's fairly rare. Poor sleep routines, that's a very prevalent issue at the moment. Stimulants, so drinking caffeine, or should I say consuming caffeinated products, stimulant drinks, etc. And just to let you know where I am with coffee, guys, coffee is a bitter herb, and any bitter herb is great for liver detoxification. So I fly the flag for coffee. Okay, it's just sadly what people put in it and do to it when they're making their own preferred beverage that the problems occur. But coffee in the whole is a good thing. Yes, it does trigger the adrenals, which again in balance is fine, but to excess is where the problem kicks in. Most of us will have a food intolerance. Guys, if you've not already looked into this, you want to really start thinking about moving away from dairy products. Dairy milk, I mean, there's really, I won't be too hardline on this, but there's really no reason why you would be drinking dairy milk in this day and age. There are so many plant-based alternatives now. If you wanted something that didn't taste that dissimilar, you could go for cashew milk. So cashew milk in your tea or coffee, you're not going to taste that much difference, or oat milk. Or if you want something sweet, you can go for almond milk. But there's, again, I could do another 30 minutes on dairy and why we shouldn't be consuming it. Wheat, gluten, again, you probably want to start looking at these and doing more research on them. I can talk more about it in future presentations if need be. And yes, more sinister, we have, not all of us, but certain clients have presented with a parasite infection or a bacteria or fungal infection, and it tends to go in that order. So if you've got a fungal infection, it's never isolated. You've probably got a bacteria in your body that's causing the fungal infection. People go on a holiday, they go to exotic parts of the world, they have animals, you know, you're probably thinking, well, really, people get parasites? Yes, sadly they do. There's over 100 different thousand versions of parasites and bacteria, and we can be exposed to it. The best thing that we can do is just make sure our gut health is optimal. We'll get to that. And there we go, dysbiosis. Dysbiosis is just a technical phrase for imbalanced gut bacteria. So it means you've got more bad than good bacteria. And also, just, you know, I can spot that in people due to the inflammation around the back of the waist. I think we call it the muffin top. So if you see that like inflammatory fat buildup around the lower back area around the sides in people, I know it sounds crazy, but the research is there. That is a indication that people have got inflammation within the gut, which is typically being caused from bad bacteria. All right, let's move into some protocols then. So what can we do? I'm just keeping my eye on time as well, guys. I hope you're enjoying it so far. You've got to really start looking at your breakfast. The first 30 grams of protein each day will contribute towards your immune system. So really, how quick can you get to 30 grams? You know, in the current challenge we've had with COVID-19, I'm sure you want to be doing everything you can to have the strongest immune system that you can, to be consuming that 30 grams, ideally at breakfast if you can, is a very positive thing that you can do. You'll also get more energy as well. I'd like to talk about certain foods having different effects on the brain, but what I will say for now is if you do a heavy carb breakfast, that will set your neurotransmission for the day on a very kind of serotonin-led neurotransmission. So if you can do more fats and proteins, not always, and we'll cover why in a second, but if you can try and do more fats and proteins for your breakfast, you might get more dopamine release, and it might give you more energy or more perceived energy. We've talked about it already. Never go hungry, guys. It's never a good time to go hungry. I know there's a lot of intermittent fasting going on, but that is very specific and very there's many factors behind that. And yes, I do believe in intermittent fasting. It has benefits, but it's got certain criteria to it. Try to avoid these high GI foods when hungry, guys. That's the worst thing you can do. So I know we all do it. We get hungry and we go for something that's like a carb-based food because, of course, internally, as I've said, cortisol's high, we're stressed because we're hungry, and then insulin comes in and just ramps that cortisol down and makes us feel better. I understand. Regulate your stimulants wherever it's coming from. We've talked about it already. Try these plant-based milks, guys. Rude Health, we use that a lot at Remedy Kitchen. They are great replacements these days. Also, try coconut yogurt. There's a company called Koyo, and this stuff is incredible. It's the taste of it is absolutely just the best, and you don't get that mucus buildup that you get from dairy because of the casein. The casein in the dairy is what causes that kind of buildup of mucus around the upper respiratory tract, unfortunately. You've got to sort your nutrition deficiencies out. Every nutrition deficiency tends to display itself physically, so I could actually look at you and sort of tell you what you are deficient in. Could also look at your diet as well and see where you are deficient based on what the food you're eating. Sort those aches and pains out, guys. Don't take painkillers for them. Stretch out the area. Try to alkalize the body if you can. Maybe you need additional sulfates in your diet, so glucosamine sulfate, chondroitin, maybe combined with cod liver oil. People who are very, very toxic in their liver, what happens is, just very quickly, this might be important to you, the toxicity in the liver can actually rob sulfates from the joints and prioritize the liver because the liver is a key working organ. So in some clients' cases, they've not actually had joint pain per se, they've actually had a really toxic liver that's been literally robbing the body's sulfate stores and causing joint pain that way, which is quite freaky. So we have to detox the liver and then replete the sulfates. You can try any form of breathing, meditation, and mind control. I'm sure you've got apps out there or methods for yourself, any form of yin building classes like yoga. Very much what we call, or I refer to as working in. So back in the day, everything was all about working out all the time, cutting out, working out. But now I'm realizing actually, if you work with people and you do a working in stage first, which is very much what we're trying to replicate at GSquared Health Clubs, you actually get better results because people are already putting out. And the more you work in business and the more you commit to your work career, the more you put out. And then you go to the gym and they expect to put out even more. And that's why people get injured and they just don't get the results, or they feel crappy because we need to build their stores first. You know this already, but you know you've got to look at this sleeping routine, and you can't be falling under 6 hours a night. Everyone's different with the requirements, but falling under 6 hours a night is going to have a damaging effect on your body, guys. And if you can try and stretch before you go to bed, this here is one of the best stretches you can do. It's called the 90-90 stretch, and it stretches out the hips. If you think about being inflamed or having a bit of joint pain, and you're going to bed with that inflammation in your joints, 2-3 hours of inactivity of sleeping, it's going to wake you up. So you're going to get sleep disruption just because your joints are inflamed or tight. So that stretching before bed can give you a better night's sleep and can actually reduce cortisol because it's a very yin building exercise. Just on the point of sleep, so you're aware of this is from traditional Chinese medicine, between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. is where you go through your physical repair. And then from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m., your body switches to a mental repair. So it's just worth knowing that for optimal health. And you may want to consider these things. Magnesium flakes, you may or may not have seen them. They're incredible. So dropping them into your bath at night can have a really calming effect on the body. It can restore your magnesium levels because magnesium has a very calming effect on the body and it can help you sleep. That's one of the best things you can do at nighttime with the stretching to really calm you down and set you up for a great night's sleep. whilst also restoring magnesium stores. But the biggest influencer, guys, always is going to be nutrition, and there is so much information out there, it's just not even funny, and I don't want to confuse or make things even worse for you. One of the longest standing experiments on nutrition was the McGlynn experiments, which is like 80 years ago now, and it's still prevalent to today. Like, he took 2 groups of rats, he fed one on the Hunza diet, which is typically rich in like vegetables, grains, fruit, particularly apricots, and the rats did well from it. Second group were fed on an English diet, and at the time, the English diet was very much the tinned meats, boiled vegetables. You know, we were kind of going into the Second World War, so it was very much that diet. And the outcome was that the rats didn't grow as well. They became ill and violent with diseases related to lung, stomach, and intestines and nervous system, which was very much prevalent at the time in 1 in 3 people. So we've known, this is the staggering thing. People think that it's like quite a new thing that we've discovered nutrition in the last 20 years. We've actually known about the impacts of nutrition on the body for over 80 years. And McGlynn really just kind of like set the scene and positioned that, but really wasn't taken any notice of at the time. Now, the best starting point, I believe, and this is from all the research I've done, is this thing called metabolic typing. I've known about this for a long time, but I've kind of disregarded it the last 20 years. It was coined by a guy called Bill Walcott, and it basically works very simple. You know, nutrition is all about simplicity and enjoyment, guys. It really is. So you're either going to fit into one of these 3 types. You're either an equatorial, a variable, or a polar. And this polar, otherwise known as protein type, okay? So what I've done here is I've got an image of what your plate should look like. So if you're a polar or a protein type, if you can just follow that ratio, and I know I've got a piece of meat there on the plate, and I appreciate some of us are now vegetarians and vegans, so any protein-based food, that's the ratio on your plate, okay? So the easiest way of looking at it. So you're looking at 30% carbs, 30% fats and proteins, and then a bit more protein, okay? Protein types do have a higher need for fats and proteins. This is where a lot of PTs got it wrong. You know, if you remember earlier, I talked about high fat, high protein for breakfast. PTs jumped on the bandwagon and were prescribing that for pretty much everyone at a certain time. Early 2000s, everyone was doing the whole like meat and nuts breakfast. The problem with that is that we're not all protein types, and a lot of people weren't really getting on with it. The other thing about protein types is that, and I'm a protein type, we are neurostimulant. So if we have a coffee, you know, we're going to be bouncing off the walls. So again, anyone that's a protein type doing like 2, 3, 4 coffees a day, you've got to watch that. Got to really be careful of that. Still have the coffee, just understand the effects it has on you. There's a need to increase calcium. And then moving into equatorial or carb types, this is what your plate would look like, guys. So 2/3 carbs, 1/3 proteins. I'll just move through these slides because I'm out of time. Carb types can tend to forget to eat protein with each meal. They'll do like a pasta meal and forget to put the proteins in. And also, if you are a carb type, and I'll tell you how to ascertain what type you are in a second, it's very, very simple, by the way. You need to make sure you're getting an adequate source of omega-3. And if you're a mixed type, a lot of clients come up as a mixed type, it's literally half and half. So half would be carbs, and the other 2 halves would be fats and proteins. So you've got a combination. The other interesting thing is that variable types can sometimes swing in and out during the season. So in the summer, they become like very protein types, and in the winter, they kind of like become carb types and start storing up, because obviously carb foods are very storage-based foods. Guys, I won't get any more technical than this, okay? So that's as far as we're going to go. I will tell you that the easiest way to ascertain what type you are is by using this simple questionnaire here. Just email me directly if you are interested in pursuing what metabolic type you are. I will send you out the questionnaire. It will take you no longer than 5 minutes. It's like 15 questions. you top the scores up and it gives you an indication as to what you might be. This is one of the quickest adjustments that I've given to people over the years. Of everything that I've given people, this is one of the quickest adjustments I've given them that actually get really quick, immediate results. On the subject of nutrition, I'm just going to fly through some medications. I want to add this in as a bit of a bonus. Certain medications, guys, will deplete the body of certain minerals and vitamins. So if anyone's on any diabetic drugs, you'll find that we get deficiencies in coenzyme Q10 and B12. If you're taking the oral contraceptive pill, there's quite a lot of deficiencies here. You'll end up with iron, B6, B2, B12, C, magnesium, selenium, and zinc. One more, vitamin E. It's not a bad thing. Just means you've got to be mindful and you've got to somehow top up. So a good multivitamin might be a good idea if you are on the oral contraceptive pill. Any blood pressure medication, again, this is over time, guys. This is on the assumption that people on this medication for a duration, we start to see these deficiencies being caused. It's not like you take one pill and, oh my God, you've got these deficiencies. It's just a question of, these are medications that people tend to stay on for quite some time. I'm sure you'll agree. So with blood pressure pills, again, coenzyme Q10, calcium, B6, magnesium, vitamin K, and zinc. Look at the research around vitamin K, that's a blood thinner right there. So actually that can actually be quite useful as a naturopathic aid. Antibiotics, you probably know this already, but it will strip your body of B vitamins, so it can cause a deficiency in energy production for yourself, because that's what B complex does, vitamin K and the friendly bacteria. So not only will antibiotics kill the bad bacteria or the infection, it will wipe out all your bacteria. So you've got to re-inoculate and get yourself on some probiotics pretty quickly. Brufen, we've all taken it. Again, quite a lot of deficiencies caused if you're taking over a period of time. Zinc, iron, K, calcium, B6, vitamin C, vitamin D, and iron, and it will downregulate stomach enzymes, guys. Just a quick one on chemotherapy. Anyone that's got any friends or family going through that, they'll find they'll have sleepless nights because chemotherapy ramps down melatonin production. It ramps down taurine, which is an amino acid, and it will just deplete your entire amino acid profile. So anyone that's on chemotherapy, you've got to get the proteins in them to keep them as healthy as possible. It's very catabolic. Again, talked about my dad's issue some time ago. And just in terms of deficiencies, this right here, guys, is a test report from a 25-year-old male that I had tested, and he came up as 44 nanomoles, which was showing as deficient. It's a 25-year-old guy. I blocked out his details, and this was mine before the lockdown. So 12th of March, 143 nanomoles. Just doing a comparison here, that's adequate. And just to let you know how much we've got to do here, I was taking 8,000 to 12,000 international units of vitamin D a day for 16 weeks. So from November, December, January, February, and in March I had the test. And that is how long I had to take that large dosing for. I know that bottles and supplements are questionable whether people want to take it or not. And it always says take one a day. That's not always the case. It really depends on how depleted we are. So that was just a bit of a test for me to see how much I had to do to replete my vitamin D. And since repleting it, I feel absolutely incredible. Guys, last 5 minutes, I think I've got the timing sorted. I just want to touch on gut health because it's also implicated to nutrition and optimal health. There's been links to suggest there's a very close link between gut health and obesity. In other words, you can't have good gut health if you are overweight. Okay, so there's an implication in gut health, otherwise dysbiosis, if we are carrying excess body fat. And when we talk about this thing called the microbiome, the gut microbiome is what is compromised, and that is linked to what we call metabolic markers. Metabolic markers are these things called insulin, cholesterol, triglycerides, which are essentially your HDL and your LDL, high density lipoproteins and low density lipoproteins. These are the metabolic markers that we assess and grade when we're looking at the impact of the gut microbiome on those metabolic markers. This is the issue. Lower levels, this is the link right here, lower levels of friendly bacteria will trigger a higher insulin and a higher ghrelin response than what is necessary. So if you've got bad bacteria in the gut, interest in that bacteria is actually controlling the level of secretion of insulin. So it's increasing your blood insulin profile, which is not a good thing. That's how we end up with pre-diabetes or insulin resistance. And it's also increasing secretion of ghrelin, which is our hunger hormone. So you can see by really working on gut bacteria, and this is the reason why, you can get a lot of enhancements in health. Like doing one thing that's going to impact 5 or 6 things really is the way to get the quickest results. How do you build good bacteria then? Well, you need to feed your body with what's called resistant-based starch to help create a thing called butyrate. And butyrate will actually feed the good bacteria. I'm just going to quickly fly through to the end point. But just bear in mind, guys, that your gut, your microbiome, is actually your second brain. You know, you've all heard the phrase gut feeling. And it's also 70%, some say more, but it's 70% of your immunity. And it's really no surprise to see the people who've suffered the most with COVID-19 are the ones who've probably got the most downregulated gut health or stomach health. So they've probably got dysbiosis on some level. They've probably got a candida infection. They've probably got downregulated stomach enzyme activity. They've probably got perforations in their stomach lining because they're eating and drinking intolerant foods. And your neurotransmitters are actually made in the epithelial lining of the gut. So things like serotonin and dopamine and GABA. So serotonin and dopamine, you've probably heard of those. They're the feel-good hormones, the ones that give you a high. They're made in the gut and they're transported to the brain. So if you have poor gut health, it's likely you're going to have poor brain health as well. To test if you do have compromised health, here's the second test you can do. It's called the spit test. Very simple. It's a glass of water. Do it tomorrow on an empty stomach. Make it the first thing you do. So before you drink or eat anything, go downstairs to the kitchen, glass of water. Sounds gross, I'm sorry. Spit into it. And after a period of time, you'll get these formations, okay? If you get anything like these here, these 3 formations, it suggests after 1 to 2 minutes, if they form, you've got a bit of a severe case of candida. If it takes about 5 minutes for these to form, then it's a moderate or mild case. If you end up after 15 minutes, it's still sat on the side and it's not really changed form at all, then you've probably got a healthy balance. Guys, if you do have, and this is one you have to write down, if you do have, let's go back to it a second, any compromised gut health, or you think you want to improve your gut health, 4 top foods you can eat, starting with the following. Slightly unripe bananas. That's the first thing you can try. Secondly, gluten-free oats. So a really good quality oat. Third and fourth thing you can try is white potato and white rice that's cooled down, which for the current climate is probably quite ideal foods. They are 4 foods of many that help to create this thing called butyrate that will feed your good bacteria. People ask me all the time, can I take Paracetamol? Can I take these? You can if you want to. You know, there's obviously those small pots you can drink of probiotics if you want to, but I'm just assuming that you want to try and implement it into your diet first. So guys, that's us pretty much done. Just to remind you, try that alignment test with your heart rate and your breathing. Try the spit test. Email me directly if you want the metabolic typing questionnaire. I'll send that out to you as well. So that's 3 things you can do today or tomorrow to really take charge of your health. Feel free to visit GSquaredClubs.com, register your interest into the think tank. If you mention Pro Manchester, guys, if you do end up joining the gym when we open, I will be I'll happily conduct your personal members journey. We have a very powerful members journey. I have a PT team that do that for me, but for you guys, I'd be happy to do it myself. And I think that is it. No, we are bang on time, 10:45. So over to you guys. Any questions at all? And over to Ruby and Catherine. Thank you very much.
There are a couple of questions in the Q&A chat if you want to answer them, Andy.
Yeah, sure. Let's have a look. Okay, so would I recommend decaf coffee? I'm trying to avoid caffeine as I'm having an IBS flare-up. Okay, so IBS is caused by the tight junctions in our stomach opening up, and then undigested particles of food go down what's called the portal vein into the liver, and then that's when we have the flare-ups. So really the trick is not to avoid stuff, but it's to actually fix and repair the tight junctions by tightening them up. So the first thing I'd recommend you do, as I just said in that presentation, try the spit test, check your gut health first, and maybe consider doing what's called a parasite or bacteria cleanse. There's 4 herbs. Sorry guys, there's so much I've got to share with you. There's 4 herbs that can help to eradicate bacteria infections. I would start there, okay? You might want to email me, Liz, and I'll talk you through that in more detail. If you're finding that black coffee is triggering, it might be that you've got slight ulceration of the epithelial lining, so you might need to actually repair the lining. I was the same. I had every time I had a coffee, I'd get like a stomach pain because I had a perforation because I was taking far too many ibuprofen. Long story, it's to do with the military, but actually repairing the gut lining helped me to do that. So I've been more interested in finding out why you're having the IBS flare-ups. Hope that helps. That's no views on BMI, etc. Mental I shouldn't worry too much about some. Okay, BMI. I'm assuming you're referring to the BMI index, right? The BMI was created in the 1930s for insurance companies in America, Chicago, if you're into your general knowledge. And it's staggering that 90 years on, we're still using BMI. And the only thing that we've actually changed is that we now add hip to waist ratio to BMI. And then we come out with this figure. I'm more interested in your body fat percentage. You know, I mean, as I sit here right now, guys, I am 16 stone 7, but my body fat is less than 15%. So, you know, my BMI would be off the chart. So I'm really not bothered what BMI says. I'm more interested in, do I feel good? Am I operating optimally? Do I look okay? Do I look presentable? And excuse me, what's my body fat percentage? And at GSquared clubs, we're actually using bod testing, which is one of the most accurate ways of testing body fat. So please, guys, if you switch to testing body fat, don't do the bioimpedance because it's one up from a guess. And anyone doing skin fold caliper, and there's a lot of PT studios that do skin fold calipers, that's great. There's different equations you can use for skin fold calipers. However, you tend to find that you have a high degree of user error. And it's quite invasive as well, you know, pinching different parts of the body. So either DEXA scan or hydrostatic weighing, which is a bit awful, it's where you get dunked in water, or the bod, which is air displacement, are the kind of the gold standards of getting body fat tested. So if you stick around and wait till we open, we can get you through the bod and give you a percentage result. What are the healthiest fruits you recommend, especially trying to avoid having too much sugar? Oh gosh, so fruits are wonderful things. So if you want better hair health, okay, so if you're getting a bit old and you've got thinning hair, you want to get fruits that are rich in biotin, and mango is particularly great for biotin. If you want to improve digestion, you have a lot of bromelain in pineapple, so pineapple is particularly good for that. If you've got slight depression or low mood state and you want that dopamine lift, get yourself on blueberries. Blueberries are great for secreting dopamine. Vitamin C, anything, and the darker the fruit, the better for vitamin C. I love grapes. I think grapes are fabulous. And if you get some, honestly, guys, try this today, right? You've got to try this today. Coconut yogurt with black grapes or red grapes. Oh my God, it's to die for, and you don't get the dairy mucus buildup thing going on. Next question, what's the best way to spend 30 minutes for physical health? That really depends on your goals. My weight training sessions I do are really no longer than 30 minutes. So I would do that. I love going out for walks, brisk walks. I think you can do a fabulous stretching session in 10 to 15 minutes. I think if you're working with a trainer and you were doing like a pad work session for 15, 20 minutes, and that's affordable, right? So if you've got a personal trainer that's, say, charging, I don't know, £30 an hour, and you go to them and say, well, I'll tell you what, let me have 20 minutes 3 times a week. So that's 3 workouts a week for 30 quid because it's prorated, right? So it's like 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes, and you turn up and you do some pad work and some kettlebells. You have a great workout in that. The truth is, guys, you can do a lot in 30 minutes. Like I get bored. If I'm in the gym longer than 45 minutes, I actually get bored. So 30 minutes works for me. Is liver the most nutritious meat or eggs? Liver is, if you're referring to liver, the meat, it's called a purine, and it's an acquired taste, quite frankly. We know that eggs are like used as like the biological value in things, so everything's compared to the egg in my understanding. Liver is a high quality purine meat, but you won't catch me eating liver anytime soon. I hope I've answered most of them. Is there any other questions, guys? Okay, I think that's everything, Catherine, unless there's any other questions.
Yeah, I think you got them all, Andy.
Splendid. Splendid. Well, thanks for listening, guys. I do hope you found it of some use. I've got my email there, and Catherine, you're going to share my email address as well. Just give me a few days to get back to you guys. It is pretty busy this end, getting the gym ready against the current challenges and whatnot. But I guarantee I will get back to you if you email me, and I'm happy to take any questions. And also, guys, I would treat it in the strictest of confidence as well. So if you've got an issue that's going on for your mental or physical, I absolutely assure you of my confidentiality. Thank you again for listening.